And there is a very good story why the shortcuts are required. So Java has been there since really long. Python has been even much more prior to that. But why Python is actually getting into the demand, right? Being a Java programmer from last 13 years, I've also been thinking why Python has been picking up, right? So what I understood, there were multiple reasons, not the single factor. One is Java is definitely a very typed language, which means it will like if at the compile time it gives you a lot of errors and people find it really difficult, but once it goes into the production it gives you little surprises. Whereas Python, if we talk about, this is very easy to code, and this is like writing almost English. Even I wrote a couple of Python programs without even knowing about it. So if you will see my video on AWS that I hosted on this channel, so there you will see I've used a lambda function which takes this s3 value and hosted on some texttract services. Without even knowing about Python, I could do that well. So what was the reason behind? Python is so simple. And the second reason why Python has increasing demand, that the data is increasing like anything, and especially with machine learning and AI related things, I found Python is really closer. The reason is the community is very strong on that side. They are building a lot of good libraries, which is making everyone's life easy. So coming back to the JavaScript, what are the arrow functions? Just to how Java is actually evolving, they have also introduced this arrow functions, lambda functions kind of thing. So it is a way of defining your functions in much more easier to understand. Not easier to understand, I would say. I still find it difficult to interpret it sometime, but I find it very easy to write. With less line of code, you can actually talk more. That is the idea. So traditionally, if we see, we have this hello and function, then we are returning hello world. And when this function is called, so when this function is called, it is actually executing in the same way. So first hello is the variable which is being called from this function, and this is coming like this. This could be written in other way, as you can see that we can say hello. We find this function is redundant in the sense that this is like anything which is coming like this. Even we don't focus whether function is written or not. As a programmer, we just see if the parentheses are coming, so which means it's a function, right? So what we can do is we can remove this, and then we can use arrow, that this function means execute just this one. So this is a little shorter version of traditional function. Now this is even gets shorter, where we see that ultimately what is written within it, it's a logic. If it is just one keyword, it means it is returning something. So what it says, it gets shorter if the function has only one statement and the statement returns a value. You can remove the brackets and the return keyword. That makes sense, right? So you are able to follow me till this part. This is very interesting actually.
Yes.
Right. Now what this says next, if you have parameters, right, this is solving the problem of without parameter thing. If you don't have parameter, this is, and you have just one written thing, you could do it really easy. But how about when you need to pass some parameters as well? So we say that arrow function with parameters, let's pass some parameter here, and then let's concatenate it, right? Then arrow function without even parentheses, so they have even removed the parentheses. So now if you don't follow this journey, you will see it really difficult what is written here. But how it is derived if you follow the complete process, it will make easier for you, right? So maybe I think you can practice this, and this is a really good thing to short the overall process. This could be at least 4-5 lines of code, which is just in a single line. So that is the benefit. If you practice it more, it will be easier for you to remember. Now what about this? The handling of this is also different in arrow functions compared to regular functions. In short, with arrow function there are no binding of this. In regular functions, this keyword represents the object that called the function, which could be the window, the document, a button, or whatever. With arrow function, this keyword always represents the object that defined the arrow function. We will see the example of it. Let us take a look at two examples to understand the difference. Both examples call a method twice, first when the page loads and once again when the user clicks a button. The first example uses a regular function where add, and the second example uses an arrow function. So let's have a look. With a regular function, this represents the object that calls a function, and let's look at the other one. So these are paragraphs, then it's a button, then it says where hello. This is a traditional way of writing the function. When we click it, right, when we click it, this function dot get element demo, and there is a listener attached to it. It says this, like who's calling it. Now we are adding this event listener. I told you about the event, and I told you about the event listeners as well. So this is one of the event listener that we are adding at the runtime to this button. We are saying once the things loads, add this listener, so that when I'm clicking on it, you will see that there are no attached events to it. But since it is loaded, now if I click, it will show me which particular event it's actually being clicked from. Like this is clicked from which particular button. So this is clicked from object HTML button, whereas first the page loads, it is a different thing. Are you able to correlate with this option now? Okay. Now let's have a look. So this is another example where it says the same way, but here the this is completely different, right? Because in this one it is representing what? In the traditional way, the arrow functions, this keyword always represent the object that defined the arrow, whereas in regular functions this keyword represent the object that called the function, right? So that is where you will see that object.window, since it defines the object, right? So there is very thin line of difference. Here someone who's calling it added, whereas here where it is defined, right? You understand the difference between two.